that where you sat last time on the side? Okay.
And then, but then I need to do it together.
Everybody gonna be here tonight?
I don't know about Mr. Harrell, I'll tell you. I can't get in touch with him.
I have to keep it on, that's what you're working on this. Steve. Steve, say Steve.
Pardon?
Hey, do you have classroom keys, like to the art room say?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be.
Oh, you do? Okay, yeah.
We need that because
Yeah.
so who sat here and here in front?
I sat right there.
Okay, so who sat there?
Elliot was the first one on loud.
Yep.
Oh, I just sit over here.
Garland's and me.
Okay, because I need to know where to put things.
They'll sit down where you put them.
Okay, and I'll just take the red ones into the far room.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sensitive mics.
Yeah.
The art room, please. Thank you.
Did she come and get that stuff? Yeah. Put this with it.
Oh, okay.
Appreciate it.
So you're sitting here. Sat here, do you remember?
Claudia, I thought, sat there.
Where
Or
did he
Peter.
sit?
Peter sat there, maybe.
Who sat there?
Nobody.
So that would be me? Who sat
Maybe,
there?
maybe no. Dr. Shores probably sat there.
And then I'll sit there and watch him?
Yeah.
Where did we have Larry? Just out in the audience?
Yeah. And I thought was watching it online and then came after, the, sound went out.
This. Karen, you just sat this out at one of the tables? I think I'm gonna sit here on the podium. They want my name come in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let's look over here.
Well, those microphones are picking up, aren't
They
they?
are that. Great day.
Can you talk around these microphones so I can verify?
Can I do what?
Can you just talk around these microphones?
Testing,
Testing.
Testing.
testing. They're good?
Testing.
Testing. Oh, gee. Hello, 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 hello. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
You can, okay. All right.
Karen, is that you over there?
Where am
There? Whose book is this?
I? Garland, I didn't know where to
Oh,
go.
okay.
Where?
So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I mean, I can sit up here, or I can sit in the audience, because Tracy's. Be there. So
Back
here, you,
I don't need a microphone. Somebody there needs a microphone.
you will Shores. Who's here?
Peter or Claudia?
Oh, yeah. And then if Tracy wants to sit here, I can sit down there. If she wants to sit down there, I can sit up here, whatever. We can go sit down there.
She got part on the agenda, yeah. That's
Yeah, so I can sit in the audience.
I know you like the strawberry.
Yeah, you do.
You do too.
I do. Do you have any cinnamon on it?
Here, no one's calling in tonight, right?
Come back now.
Say that again?
No one's calling in tonight?
Not that I have heard from.
Okay, so I just have one slide for Pete and then a presentation from Dustin?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I got a question for Larry. Do you have a Larry call?
I have a Larry call up here. Which one is Pete? This one? Which one was Pete last time?
I think that one down there.
This one? This was Pete, right?
Well, it looks different than it did last time.
Yeah.
So
Where are you?
I had to sit down here last time.
Okay.
So
I think you were over there, right?
I was over there. Single long table. It was a single long table last time there. Yeah.
So you're right there?
The next to Jim.
Oh,
Here,
That's where I was.
okay. But you can sit anywhere you want.
sit there.
And, are we live? We're gonna not be live.
And we're
Not
gonna be
yet.
in the art room once we call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Lights are on. I can't turn them
If we're live on Facebook, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fairly regularly. I called her
Sure.
not doing
It was me. It was buckling.
So I never saw a floor doing it, but we had, I think I inherited those dehumidifiers.
That's what you put around here just now.
We had two on the stage.
The Middlesex County Public School Board meeting for November the 9th, 2020 is now in session. Is there a motion to go into close?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will move to the Harper.
So
Watch the line.
Hello, buddy.
All good?
Yeah. Where do I sit?
Doesn't matter.
Maybe my blood is boiling. I'm mad. I've been trying to call that parent. Just wish the woman I worked with very closely for 2 years stuck her neck out for me. All that back. The conversation was, maybe next time try not to do it, you know. I'm frustrated.
And stuff, man, that shit.
It hurts, man. Really sweet. No good deed ungoes goes unpunished, my friends. Where is everybody?
What's that?
Where
Never heard that one, Craig. I think she was unlocked.
There should be at least one out there, because my wife did come with me. She's in one of the pockets, is she?
Too small.
Was trying to lose most of the weight. She's lost 30, 32. Something like that, and I've lost 34.
What is y'all's secret? Share.
Huh?
Share your secret.
Change our eating times.
Oh, you're
Usually somebody tries to eat times and stay away from simple sugar.
Are you doing intermittent fasting, so you're
Not
only
really.
eating in certain hours?
Eat what you're going to eat before.
Oh, okay. Nothing after 4. And then when do you eat in the morning?
Probably around 7.
Because what I'm doing is not.
Larry, I have a couple things for you. I was telling Larry, I have a couple of things for you.
You know what I'm talking about? You think it's good. Going on. Hello, Jim. Dr. Shores. I've been fishing my crap out of man. I'm carrying them up. Yeah, let's go. I'm not just.
I know, right? And my son will tell me that. You know you shouldn't be eating that. And I'm like, I'm 5:30 in the morning, trying to work out.
Those box of dots, you know what I'm talking about, the gum drops?
Yeah. I don't do it all the time, but it's just some.
Those are, I'm a real big fan.
Tracy.
Candy corn.
Is there gonna be a jingle bell for this?
No,
No.
no, they decided a while ago not to have it. Yeah, I know.
Sugar.
So I guess
Jelly bean?
it's been year 6, maybe 5 or 6,
At Easter.
which is a shame.
Oh, they kind of have like a, almost like a marshmallow inside, but they're hard coated.
Yeah.
They're about this long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loving.
It's kind of like a sugar, not really marshmallow.
What's that?
Easter eggs
Oh,
in the plastic wrapper.
yeah,
But they kind of like a marshmallow, but it's not really marshmallow.
Yeah,
It's that-
sugar.
It's a sugar, I mean, straight sugar.
I remember the day I foundered on those.
You remember the day what?
I remember the day I had so many of those that I just got sick, and to this day, I don't like to think about them.
I haven't had one in a long time.
I think I was like
And I
6 or
think that-
7.
And I think I'm. That's not what happened to me. It's been a long time. I probably- I guess I got sick off.
They're like those circus peanuts.
Like the circus peanuts, it's the same, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I am now. There was a time when I loved them, and then something happened.
Something happens.
Ooh.
Yeah.
For
Yes.
middle school, I'm not doing it this year.
Yes,
Yep.
That's why,
The smell.
the smell.
There may be 3
Yeah.
that play. And Greg had said that he would
around.
still work with
That
them.
stuff together.
That's why I'm gonna go up and volunteer to
Safety.
the new high school folks. And just say, continue to work with the three that are coming off of, they're in the 8th grade. And I can come out there and pick the range for them and help it a little bit. But I'm not gonna try to coach a separate team.
The chair will entertain a motion to go out of closed session.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pursuant to the Code of Virginia, the board discussed personnel matters, student matters, and legal matters during closed session. Matters discussed in closed session have been added to the consent agenda and other parts of the agenda as action and information items. When members members of the board certify that only lawful matters were discussed in closed session. Ms. Jordan, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Reed?
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Socek?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Shores?
Yes.
And Mr. Goodwin?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America,
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On the agenda is recognitions that Dr. Gretz has done this evening, but I would like to make a comment. Last month, when the certificates of recognition were handed out from the Virginia School Board Association, I was caught off guard. I didn't realize that was occurring. But I did give Dr. Gretz his. I thought it would be good. I'm probably going to have all of the things listed that Dr. Gretz is involved in, but I thought it would be good for the community to understand that he's not just superintendent of Middlesex County School, which in itself is a big enough job, but he is also the superintendent for Virgin Communities. He is on the Small and Rural School Coalition Committee Group Coalition. That word takes a community redundant. He also is the chair of the Virginia Department of Education Committee, which meets one Friday a month, I believe. He is on our local wide board, and not least of anything, he has a wife and 4 children. And I probably left out some things, Dr. Gretz,
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
but we appreciate how much you are valued in the state, and how often you are asked to either write letters for other groups or to participate in testifying somewhere, and so we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And this last few months have been very, very, shall we say, rewarding, but difficult. And you and Dr. Seitz have led the team with remarkable ease and aplomb, and I can't tell you how much your board appreciates what both of you have done to get us to this point. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're not gonna say that all over again? Seriously? Okay. Okay. There are some additions and corrections to the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Move they approve.
Second. Any questions about them? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Public announcements. November is Family Engagement and Education Month. November 11th through the 9th through the 13th is School Psychology Awareness Week. November the 11th is Veterans Day. November the 11th is report cards issued. November the 20th is Substitute Educators Day. November the 25th to the 27th is Thanksgiving holidays. Schools and division offices will be closed. December the 8th, end of the second quarter interim grading period. December the 14th will be the second quarter midterm report cards issued, and December the 14th is the next school board meeting at 7 p.m. at St. Clair Walker Middle School Auditorium. The floor is open for public comment. Hearing none, seeing none, the floor is now closed. Board members, do you have reports? Mr. Goforth, anything from Bridging?
Nothing since the last meeting. We did meet, as you know, the Finance Committee with 2 members of the Board of Supervisors. And some issues were discussed, appeared on the Board of Supervisors agenda. And I think Peter and Dustin will have some things to share with the board too, which were accomplished.
Dr. Shores?
Yes, we'll be meeting this Thursday via Zoom.
Okay.
And so, but looking at their budget and all, everything seems to be in order and ready to go.
Great. Mr. Reed.
I think all of you have a copy of the 2020 legislative session policy brief. This is what's been going on.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir?
And the regional SPED group met last Wednesday morning by Zoom, and all is going very well there. Dr. Tingley, who's the interim director, talked to us a little bit about the trial and error for PPE and how they had worked that out and things that they're doing to make sure everyone are being safe in that environment. And so we also heard from at least 4 teachers, I think it was, that morning. And all of them were very excited to have the students back. Going very well. Great. The consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Move we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Dr. Gretz, recreation.
Okay, on page 25 of your board manual, you'll see the appropriations. These have already been presented to the Board of Supervisors and approved for appropriation. The first is a series of, which is on 26, is basically truing up the federal grant awards that we always use the previous year's allocation to apply for. And then throughout the fall, as you know, we get the actual amounts. So this is taking those actual amounts and appropriating them in such a way as to make those figures reflect the current awards. And those go through 26 to 27. On page 28, we're appropriating money that's coming through the State CARES Act, different distributions. Actually, I'll say page 28, and then the next appropriation is CRF funding, which is the second disbursement of those funds. So both of these are appropriating CARES Act funds in support of the schools. And then on page 31, we were given a window of opportunity that Mrs. Murray and Mr. Dunkel worked on to expand the money that we receive through the E-rate funding in order to support broadband in support of addressing the impact of the pandemic. Trying to figure out a good way to word that. And so we availed ourselves of that opportunity. We're able to get more funding and increase our broadband capabilities accordingly. And then finally, we received some funds through a program where we're collecting money from families when the iPads and the devices that we distribute get damaged. And so it's a small amount of money, but this is appropriating that money that we received through those damages in order to pay for those repairs. Any questions that you have on any of those appropriations, we're happy to answer them.
No, I'm good. Anyone?
There is one additional appropriation that was added to yours in the lead.
I'm obviously forgetting this.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was actually expecting to do this during CIP. I'm glad you put this in here. I'm sorry. So along with some of the other things discussed in the Board of Supervisors meeting, we did ask them to support using county CARES funds, what you see in your additional materials that were put there. And this is the purchase of bipolar ionization technology that we talked about that will go in all 3 schools. We have enough of our schools CARES money to do this school, which is the most expensive of the 3. But we asked the county to support installing the technology in the high school and in the elementary school, which they did approve doing. So this would appropriate those funds as well as air purifying air filters, air cleaners that we would install into the HVAC systems on every school bus to enhance safety efforts on the school buses. So they did approve those 2 things on last Tuesday. Sorry about that.
All right, is there a motion to approve the appropriation request?
Second?
Are there any questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, CIP annual review.
All right, thank you. Board members, in your packet, you have the submission forms that we use to submit the school CIP items to David Kretz. As you're aware, the process involves those submission forms then going before a county review committee that's made up of community members, and they rank these, and then they go for consideration before the supervisors, usually sometime in around January. So before these are official, we ask the board to review them and to approve them. Dustin Harris is actually going to present these to you, and there are some slides. So those of you who we may want to relocate so you can see these slides, I know he has some pictures to share with you as well. So really at this time, Mr. Harris, I'm going to turn it over to you. As we relocate and Mr. Dunkel gets the slides up there.
I will say the hardest part of this whole process was doing the CIP while also doing CPI training for Kathleen. Is same letters, different arrangement. So I was confusing my capital improvements with my crisis prevention. So forgive me if I jumble the words up, but CIP and CPI and IP, they have all been the same the past couple weeks. So what I've done, and really throughout this whole process, I've been in this position now a month, is to educate myself on, you know, kind of what Greg had carried over each year and presented. I really wanted to make sure I had a firm understanding on each project so I could then communicate it to anybody who asked me. So it's 40 slides long, but it's just pictures. So I rehearsed it the other night, 3 minutes a slide, 2 hours is all I'm going to ask for this presentation, if that's okay. So anyways, so it's 4 projects. So project 1 obviously has been at the forefront, you know, of our CIP for the past few years.
Yes.
And it is the rooftop unit replacement at MES. You know, so presenting that we need $1.8 million. And ASHRAE is, you can go ahead, Steve. I'm going off you, buddy. You know, at this point now, even looking outside of the leaks, is these units are on the tail end of their lifespan. Is they're original to the building in 2002. So they're coming up on their 18th birthday when ASHRAE, which is, you know, the air, as you can see, the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, the median lifespan of these commercial rooftop units is 15 years. So regardless of the other things that we know about them, we now know, you know, by this data that they are at the tail end, you know, the latter end of their lifespan. So for those of you, again, me, this is just educating myself. I'm going to breeze through this. Really, is an aerial view of Middlesex Elementary School. We have 6 rooftop units. Rooftop A, or RTU A, B, C, and E are the big boys. You know, those are the large ones. And then we have rooftop unit D. That one has a little asterisk beside it because that one is not original to the school's construction in 2002. That was replaced in 2012. And then we have rooftop unit F, which solely, you know, provides heat and air to the gymnasium area. So that's just a bird's eye view of what I was looking at and kind of to orient you on that. Go ahead, Steve. Again, now looking at those bigger units, these are the large units, these 40-ton units. Again, educating myself. These are split units. So there on the left, you have your air handling system. To put this in perspective for a residential application, your air handler is usually what you would see in an attic. And then you have your condensing unit on the right, which you would see usually outside here. These are a split unit. Everything's right there up on the roof. Again, RTUC, that's the 3 main ones that serve the majority of the school. Go ahead, Steve. All right, so here we are on top of the office and the gym. RTU-E is another, the fourth of the big one, 40-ton units. Go ahead, Steve. RTU-F, that services the gym. These ones are original too. Notice I didn't put RTU-D in there. That's the one, if we went back 2 slides. That one, right, little carrier unit right there, that serves the office. That was replaced in 2012. All right, Steve. So just to the outside of their lifespan, the issue is the water coming in. All right, and again, I had to educate myself because this was never on my radar 2 months ago. But what we have is we have a pitched roof right there, the curvature of the roof. And for these to be applied to a roof, you have to have a level surface. And that's where we introduce that curve. It's the dark gray piece that I've indicated there. Now, the light gray is the engineered unit that was designed specifically for this. This is not what we call an off-the-shelf unit. That unit and the units on top of the roof are engineered units that were specific for that curve. You can't, I guess they call it, I was talking to my father the other day about it, commercial off the shelf, COTS unit. That's what everybody wants, is the standard unit that we can get off the shelf. This is not the case with what we currently have up there. Those are engineered units. All right, so what happens is they sit flush on that curve, and the design flaw was that they run flush. There is no overhang. That light gray should cap that dark gray, similar to a soda bottle. So we could have a bunch of analogies. So this is what it actually looks like. There's a little steel plate there, but where the yellow arrow is pointing is that union, where the rooftop unit does sit right on top of that curve with no overhang. So what happens is we are getting water inside of that. Now, inside of that curve is where we have our return air supply and our supply air. So that now goes into the ductwork, and that's where we're getting the water. All right, so here's what we want. So obviously, our curve is, we can't change our curve, what we have up there. So, the projection there is to go with a standard unit. And what I've learned is a standard unit is much easier for folks to work on. The parts are readily available. It's just a well-known unit. And the only thing that has to be engineered there is what we would call a curve adapter. So that would basically, make the union between the curve, what we currently have, and a standard unit marry up nicely and correctly. So therefore, the blue on the side, you would see the water correctly drain and not go inside that curve, inside that ductwork, and go off the roof door drain. So that was I was trying to go 3 minutes a slide, but I couldn't get it. So that was educating you. So that is rooftop unit D, which we currently have on top of the office, a standard carrier unit. And if you can see that funneled metal piece, that's what we call a curve adapter. So that's a standard unit that fits our application by means of a curve adapter. So that's what's engineered, not the unit. And from what I've learned is you'd rather have those pieces engineered outside of the meat and potatoes of your actual unit. You want that to be an off-the-shelf unit that is readily available, parts are available, people are very familiar, so that they can diagnose, troubleshoot, and work on that. All right, so now we're going to, any questions on that? Again, learned this within the past year, and my goal was to be able to communicate it to folks. I've had board of supervisors just inquire about things, and I wanted to make it very simple, so I had to basically relearn it and teach it as I would when I was in a class of students. So anyway, project 2 is very simple. It's the chiller right side out of this school. Again, original to the building of construction in 1994. So the math there is, really the rationale behind that is Honeywell, is going to kick it out of the maintenance agreement in 2023. Again, urgent, but not hugely urgent, because Honeywell is still putting the bill for any sort of repair on that, but it is something we want to keep on our radar. Just to familiarize yourself what that unit looks like is this next picture here. So ASHRAE's position on that is 20 years on the chillers as opposed to 15 years with rooftop units. Again, still outside of our window. Past that. That's our chiller right here. It's just right outside. This building right here. So that's that unit. And what I've come to know is just having a connection to Gloucester. Gloucester High School just replaced a very similar unit, just a little bit larger this past summer. And I swung by and took a quick picture of that one on the next slide for that. So they replaced that with a carrier unit. That's a $250,000 job there. Project 3, which I'm pretty passionate about. It's been hanging, above our heads. I don't know, given the state of things, I don't know if now's the best time to do it, but it's something that I'm extremely passionate about. It's really pushing that threshold of providing the best learning environment for our students and staff. Is just getting some ballpark numbers there. Is doing it the correct way, not just having it out there, but really being transparent, saying we have a plan on how we want to do this. It's something we've all discussed. But we have basically, we've laid out a plan. And if Steve will go to the next slide, I have a timeline here, is starting this school year. I've already talked with Susan Fleet, I've spoken with Dr. Gretz. It's just assembling an informal task force. Is to build conversations, because we want to target the users of the building. I don't want it to come from me or there's some architect that's not using Middlesex High School. We want to know what are the users, staff, students, community members, what do the users want to see here? So that we really have some good data and some good direction on, once we do by summer 2021, reach out to an architect, we have some notes, we have some pictures, we have some experience from site visits. I was at Richmond High School, Rappahannock High School, I'm sorry, for this CPI training that I was going to. And I was just like, wow, there's some neat things I could take away. To get that task force to do some visits to area high schools that have undergone some renovations, to take away some things that we would like here, and just to take some meaningful data to an architect to do the A&E. So the idea there is to get $75,000 in a ballpark figure to get the A&E done. And then really in school year 22-23 is to begin those renovations. So the next slide, Steve. I'm sorry. So task force, I've reached out to Susan, who she would identify in-house, and that would be Drew Lane, assistant principal, Matt Stam, Joel Anderson, Judy Reinhardt, and then again, myself, Steve with some infrastructure pieces, Dr. Gretz, Dr. Seitz, school board members at large, community, parent members, and students. And again, this is not, we all meet here. It may be me meeting with community members all, one day, the high school building level task force another day, really getting some meaningful data of what they want to see so that they have some investment in that project. The next should be a map of kind of what we're looking at. Obviously what's not around in red is the West Wing, and that was renovated in 2003. Everything else is in need of some attention. So it's, I have a vision of what I'd like to see. My vision is not the only vision I want to take forward. I want to pull everybody, community, Parks and Rec is usually. It's just, I want to know what the community wants to rally around and really see go in this space. And just see what the potential is. And just get the conversations going. Again, in the red, you'll see what's at stake here and what's surrounding that area. All right, go ahead, Steve. And again, Steve, I want you to spend a minimum 3 minutes on each picture before you advance to the next slide so everybody can really take it in. All right, 3 seconds, Steve, will work. So this is just familiarizing. Again, this is also, I want to make this readily available to anybody who wants to see it. I know y'all are well versed on the layout. Keep going, Steve, you're spending too long, buddy. Are well versed on kind of the layout of the school. But, I want anybody to pull this up and look at it, kind of what we're kind of, pitching to move forward with. This is where I think we need a little music. And I think just as he goes, the media center is what you see now. The media centers really start to take the central hub of the school. If you go to newer schools, it's that media center really hits you in the face. And it's, different than just the library. It is, there's technology everywhere. It's just a collaborative environment for students. And, I'd really like to branch out to some colleges, area colleges who are really taking on a cool learning environment for students. And again, we're maintaining what we have. We're maintaining it to the best of our ability. We're not going to let it go by the wayside, hoping and praying for for this elusive thing down the road to happen. Back one side, Steve.
I sent you a picture of mechanical / boiler room.
I can tell you what, so the last project we threw in is a Hail Mary. I wanted to go in with 3. I didn't want to, but the more I looked at it, I was like, this may need to happen sooner than later. And this is paving, seal coating, and painting at the middle school and the elementary school. The 2 gravel lots here at the middle school would need to be paved with 5 inches of asphalt. And then everything that's currently paved would be seal coated and repainted. And go ahead, Steve. And mainly, right here is where we have our charging station. And, you know, hopefully by the end of this month or early December, you know, we'll have some buses moving in right there. So, you know, ideally, that's going to be, those buses tear up that gravel. That's where they also do the transfers. And they come in there and transfer the students. So it would be nice to get pavement in that area. So that's the number 4 for the projects I have on the CIP. Again, the yellow areas, aerial shots of St. Clair Walk on the right. Yellow needs 5 inches of pavement. Everything outlined in red needs resealing and painting. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it there. So any questions on that? All righty.
I want you to go back. I've got a couple of questions on the replacing the air conditioning.
Yes, sir.
All right, I did watch the presentation for the Board of Supervisors, and I want to be sure that the rest of the board members that maybe didn't see that presentation understand the timing and how we're going to start, and some of the questions that you resolved the Board of Supervisors asked.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. So we would start this project in the summer. We would do this, and it would be completed this summer. There have been talks about stretching it out over a longer period of time and doing 1 unit at a time at the price tag of about $440,000. Matt Walker had you know, really chimed in about the timing. The interest rates it's in the taxpayers' best interest. With the interest rates like they are right now, it's just fund and finance the whole project right now, just getting it out of the way. You know, I had a couple of Board of Supervisors. I know a couple of them were asking, like, you know, let's put these units on the ground. That way, you know, we're not having to rent a $30,000 crane, you know, should something happen. To counter that, you know, I inquired about that. Like I said, every time I'm asked a question, I also wonder, why not? You know, I don't want to just quickly dismiss it. You know, that's essentially that school was built for rooftop units. So it's not just the rooftop units that are being put in the ground. There's a lot of infrastructure and reworking ductwork that has to happen at the price tag of in the ballpark of $500,000 on top of a $1.8 million. What else am I missing, Mr. Goforth?
But let me add just a couple things. Dustin, first of all, great job. Thank you for the overview and the summary. The one thing I wanted to make sure the board members understood about the HVAC in particular, just to refresh everybody's memory, we got an unofficial estimate for what it would cost to do that job from Honeywell. And that was 3 years ago, I believe. And that was what they gave us was a figure, again, an unmitigated estimate of what it would cost to do 1 unit per year for 6 years. And we use that figure in our CIP request. That CIP request went through the process last fiscal year and was approved as a part of the county's CIP. It is sitting right now as a part of the county's capital improvement program. But if you remember, before the funds were actually appropriated, we were asked to pause, get another estimate. We worked with Bay Design. Bay Design contracted with Dunlop. And we then got really our first official proposal for what it would cost. The Honeywell proposal was an informal estimate. The one we got from Bay Design was one we actually paid them for. And it included the cost of doing one a year. It also included the cost of doing it all at once. So we took that figure that we got from Bay Design, both of them, and went back to the supervisors in the Budget and Finance Subcommittee meeting, and we discussed it. So it came up in the Board of Supervisors meeting. It was on the agenda as a discussion item, but because it had already been approved, we discussed whether or not we wanted to move forward. I presented on behalf of the school board that we had already approved it. We approved it last year. It was in the CIP, and we'd like to move forward. And so they voted unanimously to approve it. So interestingly, you're approving CIP requests that will go to the supervisors for approval. This one's already been approved, and it's already been funded. But it's been funded at the amount that Bay Design gave us as a proposal last year to do it all at once, which is less than the 1.8 that's in here. It's 1.6 and some change. So my recommendation, as you consider these requests, would be to approve this, but to authorize us to adjust that figure to the one that was approved by the supervisors last week for funding, which is the figure that was given us by Bay Design, and one that we feel very comfortable to go out to bid for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And that meeting happened after the packet was put together, so we weren't able to adjust it.
All right, still, I've got a couple questions. I think some of the concern originally too was that Honeywell was the one that was giving us the proposal. So how are we going to proceed to get competitive bids?
We're going to just put it out there and ask people to bid on it.
Okay, but it's going to be engineered beforehand, or the individual that's bidding on it is going to do the design bid?
I think the individual bidding on it would include the design. Sure.
Okay, all right. And then there was some discussion about whether Bay Design would also review those proposals. Is that our plan?
Well, it's not our plan. I think that's that would really be part of the procurement in the end, is if we wanted to. My recommendation to the board would be, if the supervisors wanted to include additional funding to support Bay Design operating in that,
Okay.
What's it called? Clerk of the Works kind of type role, that we'd certainly be happy to do that. I personally wouldn't recommend that come out of the 1.6 that is for the HVAC. I think that's an additional expense, and one that we're not insistent on procuring, but we would do it if it would give the county a added degree of comfort.
Right. Okay, I'm straight.
Yeah.
I won't ask any more questions.
Sure, load me up. I'm learning. Any other questions with these pieces? Like I said, Dr. Gretz pulled me into that superintendent's meeting to speak on bipolar ionization. After bus filters and after rooftop units at the MES, I was like, you didn't tell me those two pieces. But rest assured, the bipolar ionization, what Dr. Gretz has spoke on, their units placed inside the air handlers of all of them at 3 schools. And when we do replace these, they're pieces of equipment that can be moved to the new units. It's not we'd like, we're putting this money into these units that are about to be, removed. They can be removed and put into the new units.
And do we assume these are more efficient units than what we have now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The technology and just the comfort of knowing that we're looking at the off the shelf type units that are, widely known, widely studied, widely just troubleshoot. It's a huge degree of comfort. So, all righty.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
The filtration for the air is in the units, or is it in the ductwork? It's a separate thing.
So the filtration, as far as improving the air quality in the school.
Yeah.
So the filtration, and again, this is something else I've learned through so if we were to take Middlesex Elementary School, for example, you have what we call pre-filters and final filters. Pre-filters we have what we call VAB boxes that essentially allow one unit to expand to 20 classrooms, and then you can control those 20 classrooms at different levels of comfort. and then through those VAV boxes, and they all have these, what we call a pre-filter, which basically when they're pulling air in, it filters that air. And then there's a final filter that's up on the roof in the air handlers. So there's 2 layers of filters. But so what I've learned, and in talking with a couple of people through all this, is those filters are designed to protect the equipment, not the users, if that makes sense. Filters are designed to protect your HVAC equipment, to keep the contaminants out of your equipment. Now, when we talk about this bipolar ionization, that now improves the air quality being pushed out into your spaces. And it's going to be a huge, prior to me not knowing, I would assume a higher rating filter is going to be better for me in that space. But now really knowing, the technology behind this is okay. So, if you don't know, you don't know, and people want these better filters in these, in these applications, which again, you put a denser filter, it's going to make your units work harder to pull that air, because it's pulling it through a much, more dense application. So you may experience, your units running more often. So, energy costs going up. And then also, you might start having some equipment failure because they are working much harder. So this bipolar ionization is a huge win because it does allow us to say, no, we are making efforts to improve the air quality that is being dispersed from the machine. Does that answer your question? Thank you, sir. All righty.
All right, is there a motion to approve I'm on the wrong, the CIP annual review? Does require
These requests to be submitted to the county
To the
as
county.
part of that, right?
Right.
So
Second,
Are there any more questions about the CIP?
and you wanted the amount adjusted, or is it staying at 1.8?
I'm asking that I be given the flexibility to adjust that as we go through this process. The next step is it goes to the county and then it goes through a review process, that as we go through that process, we would adjust that to the amount that was approved by the supervisors on Tuesday.
Okay, so you don't want us to do it here and now.
Well, I don't have that amount. I mean,
Okay.
if you're comfortable to adjust it to, I know it's 1.6 something.
That's the
You
way
don't
I
remember, do you?
remember it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need to amend the motion?
No.
Okay. All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Our FY '22 budget calendar.
Okay, thank you. It's hard to believe. It doesn't necessarily feel like it, but we're right in the thick of budget development season. There's a draft budget calendar included on page 44 of your board packet. There are a lot of dates in here that we just don't know yet, but we've put together at least the ones you can see where we are in November with tonight's board meeting. The next thing that would happen is we would have our meetings with cost center managers and administrators to talk about prioritization. At the next board meeting, I'll ask the board to approve budget priorities for us. And we are set to hear from the governor. It's a short session this year, but given the status of things, I do think that it is possible that we could hear some significant information about revenue projections on the 16th. And then as we continue to talk to the supervisors about how we move forward this year, typically we've done a joint meeting, at least one, if not two, and one of those being a discussion, a presentation, and a meal together. If that's something that's still of interest to the board, we would approach them with that, but I don't have any of those dates. If there are any questions that you have about this budget calendar, or otherwise, I'll ask you to approve it, and it'll basically become a rolling agenda item as we adapt it.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the budget calendar draft?
So moved.
For second? All right, any questions? You understand it is a floating, dates may change. All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And in-person learning update.
So for this next item, we've combined what traditionally at the end of the meeting, Dr. Seitz gives a summary of instructional highlights. I envision this being somewhat of a rolling agenda item as well. That each month we'll give an update on how in-person learning is doing, how virtual learning. We've just started the hybrid. Today was day 3 of in-person learning. So we don't have a whole lot to report to you. We can certainly report that on Thursday and Friday, we had our B-Day kids, so that cohort of students. And logistically speaking, operationally speaking, instructionally speaking, both days were very smooth. Dr. Seitz has got some details that she's going to share with you about numbers and things like that. Today, we started with our Group A kids. And again, it was very smooth operationally. When you split the cohort into 2 groups and subtract the roughly 30% who have chosen to remain fully virtual, it's easy to forget there aren't many kids in the building at one time. And so classroom capacity is greatly reduced. The school capacity is reduced because of the mitigations we have and the protocol that the principals have put in place with how class changes are handled at the secondary level and when they're handled. If you're in these schools, even during a class change, it really doesn't feel like anybody's in the building unless you go into a classroom and you see students. So it really is going well. Dr. Seitz, you want to update with some of the numbers as far as?
Sure. As we said, it's a lot less than typically is in the building. So on any given day, MES has about 80% of their students that came back in person. So then we split that in half. So about 225 students in the building on either A day or B day. St. Clair Walker and the high school have 70% of their kids coming back. So when we split that, St. Clair Walker has approximately 95 students and the high school has about 110 students in the building. So we've both been in all 3 of the schools on multiple days, class changes at the high school, although it was a pretty calm school to watch a class change in when we were open with all of the students. Now it's much less quiet or much more quiet, I should say, in the buildings. So lots and lots of smiles, little to no tears I've seen. I think we identified our first crier coming into the elementary school this morning, but he still willingly came in and let go of his dad and came into the building. So a couple of little fellas I talked to, I saw them on their second day back last week, and I said, "Are you excited to be back again?" And one of them said, "I feel like I've been here 10 days already," but his tiny little brother, who I think was in one of the preschool programs, he said, I think he was trying to trump his brother, and he said he felt like he had been there 100 days already, but said it with a smile. So they're excited to come in, they're excited to come back. Like Dr. Gretz said, we've only been in for 3 days, but I don't think we could have had it run any more smoothly. I learned today from a St. Clair Walker teacher that they started on their A days with their roomies and zoomies. So I had to ask what roomies and zoomies were. And that meant for the St. Clair Walker on their ADs that they've got live sessions going on at the same time they're zooming. So they're making that work at the same time. So they're roomies and zoomies. New term. But
Fun.
yeah.
So, some of the challenges that we're continuing to work through with the synchronous sessions that are happening, as Dr. Seitz just described, that's really happening at all 3 schools in different classrooms where there are students at home who are able to Zoom into a live class. And like everything, we'll continue to adapt and to learn, but that is a challenge for teachers, especially teachers of primary grade students who, when they do come for in-person learning, they're very needy. They need a lot of attention, and the students who are Zooming in need a lot of attention. And so I think it's an ongoing process of learning how to manage that and to do it well. One of the challenges that I think probably all students, but especially younger students have when they're learning those foundational skills and they're very young, sound recognition, letter recognition, they don't necessarily they don't necessarily remember day to day what they did the day before. And for them to come in a couple of days and then have really 5 calendar days before they come in again is a challenge. It's a great improvement for those students who needed to be in person over having no in-person instruction. But I would just encourage us to continue to view this as hopefully a temporary, very healthy step, but a step towards what I hope will be another step, because we do see that some of our students really do need that robust time educationally. But again, overall, I think it's going very smoothly. Buses, meal delivery, all of that is happening pretty much seamlessly. At least it feels that way to us. So it's going very well. I think our staff's doing an exemplary job. Any questions that you have?
Our overall enrollment is holding steady or down?
No, it's holding steady. Did you have, yeah.
Any word from the state as to whether they're going to hold us harmless?
No, my understanding is that the state is going to make some sort of determination about that in January. I'm hopeful that when the governor speaks on the 16th, maybe we'll learn something then about that. Did you have anything different? Yeah, that's the best intel that we have about that situation. I think the General Assembly had kicked it to the first of the year, but maybe the governor will speak to it. And next month when we get together, we'll have obviously a lot more days under our belt to talk about. It's just begun, but I feel like Karen Carpenter.
All right, thank you. The VHSL athletic update.
Okay. Several things to report to you about this. I guess just to refresh your memory, the seasons were amended by the VHSL some time ago. Winter sports would be our first season, and that would begin December 7th for practice. I think competition would begin the 21st of December. And that involves wrestling, girls and boys basketball, cheerleading, swimming, forensics, and scholastic bowls. So winter sports would be our first season. And then the next season, we'd go back to fall sports. So that would roughly be February through April. Football, cross country, golf, and competition cheer. And then the spring sports would go from April through June, mid-June. Softball, baseball, boys and girls track, tennis, boys and girls soccer. So just last week, October 28th, the governor amended his executive order 67 to allow public schools to begin athletic competition with this winter season in December. So December 7th, we'd be allowed to do that. And accordingly, the Virginia High School League, which has been meeting throughout the summer and throughout the fall, and superintendents obviously have been in close communication with the Virginia High School League, and so have athletic directors and high school principals have all been part of this developing discussion about athletics and guidelines and how we would handle that. And I think the VHSL, every time they would meet, there'd be some information that would result, but essentially they would wait and set a projected date to find out what the state was doing. Well, I think ultimately this is really what they were probably waiting for, is for the governor to make his determination. So executive order was amended. VHSL released just last Friday their new set of guidelines for schools about return to participation, guidelines for return to participation. And so this is an extensive document. It's one that was done in connection with a lot of different agencies and groups, input obviously from the VHSL itself and that staff, but sports medicine advisory committees, the NCAA, the Virginia Department of Health, USA Football, USA Field Hockey, USA Lacrosse, all those governing associations for the individual sports. And so they released these guidelines. What we're trying to do as superintendents and athletic directors and high school administrators is to get our heads around the protocol in terms of individual determinations about whether or not we will begin sports as allowed in December, and if so, how? And every division is in a different place with this. Some divisions have already released their decision to not move forward with winter sports. I saw today Arlington is one of those. I think Suffolk or Sussex, maybe one of those. But and then there are other divisions that are wrestling with this as we are. What I would submit to the board, as you work through these guidelines, and what you'll see is there's a great deal of work that's been put into outlining safety mitigations and protocol accommodations and adaptations for getting to and from, for addressing the bench, addressing the officials. But when it comes to the actual competition itself, there's only one way to play a basketball game. You really can't amend it, but so much. And so you can employ the mitigations when you're getting kids to the court, when they're on the sideline of the court, for the fans. And those are all addressed in here as well. You might remember there was a 10-foot rule that's been lifted. The 10-foot rule is no longer there. The maximum capacity of the event and the participants is still there. But I think the difficulty that many of us are having, I'll speak for myself, the difficulty I'm having is reconciling that the Department of Health has been insistent that if we're going to have kids in school, we really need to ensure that students are kept 6 feet apart. 3 to 6 is the figure that's been used by some agencies. But as you know, as our health director has been to speak with you a couple of times in public board meetings, 6 feet of social distancing is the recommended mitigation. And it is the question that we are asked anytime there's a potential exposure and contact tracing begins. They don't come in and ask if you've been 3 to 6 feet. They ask if you've been within 6 feet. So 6 feet of social distancing is something that we're employing in our schools, on our school buses. That's why our buses have been reduced to the capacity that they are, is so they'll allow the social distancing. That's why you see the markers all over this school. So students, when they're walking down the hall, will stay 6 feet from one another. That's why we aren't using the cafeteria at the elementary school, and they're serving meals in the classrooms. And I could go on and on and on. Social distancing of 6 feet is has been emphasized, and it's one that we are very rigidly employing. But the 6 foot of social distancing is not part of these recommendations when you're playing basketball and wrestling and doing other sports. And so we're trying to get our heads around, I am trying to get my head around why what is recommended as a necessary safety practice for a 3rd grade classroom is not necessary for safety on the basketball court. And I'm not picking on basketball, we can pick any sport. But these are the ones that are impending next month. We have to decide about it. Basketball and wrestling probably are the two that involve the most close contact. And so I have communicated with the Department of Health on this and have not gotten a good explanation for why the disposition is different in those two settings. And that leaves me as a superintendent unable to explain to a constituent or a parent or a student, for that matter, or a coach, why what we allow on the wrestling court or the wrestling mat or basketball court is not allowable in a social studies classroom or a math classroom or in the hallway. So I don't want to belabor that point, but this is an apparent inconsistency that I personally feel like I need to have reconciled for me before I can recommend to this board that we move forward with those activities. If in fact, we need to guarantee that students and adults in the schools are 6 feet apart because their safety depends on that, how does that go out the window when we allow kids to play basketball and wrestle with one I don't have an answer to that yet. I'm pursuing one, realizing I am not a public health professional. But in the absence of that explanation, I think we'll have a hard time justifying that. So I'll put that out there as, don't mean for that to be a negative thing. We're all hopeful about school returning to normal and athletics returning. I believe students need this, and I certainly support it and want it. But we're first and foremost assuring safety in our schools and safety in athletics. And I think we need to be able to address those things. So we'll continue to do that. We're meeting regularly as a leadership team with the high school leadership. The athletic directors are meeting regularly. I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with my counterparts in surrounding school divisions, those superintendents, to discuss this very thing. I saw this morning that the Department of Health and the VHSL has, apparently they're going to revisit these because they might be hearing from folks about this conflict. So I think there's more to develop and more to be seen, but I did want you to be aware that this just came out and everybody is figuring out what to do about it. I think there are parents who are eagerly awaiting a decision and students I know who are eagerly awaiting a decision. And we want to make the very best one on behalf of our school and community. Any questions or discussion you all have about this issue? I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about it.
It is odd. I mean, as you said, it just seems very odd that the restrictions are so tight in the classroom, but yet athletically, they seem to be thrown out the window. I'm not sure how that makes good sense, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, the CARES funds update.
Okay. Mr. Dunkel, I believe, has a slide he's going to put up behind me. We wanted to give you an update on how CARES funds have been distributed. This is really a very high level update, although we have granular detail we can share if you'd like to see that. CARES money has been distributed. I want to wait for that to go up there because what I say probably you'll want to refer to. Okay. So what I'll say is essentially going to go along with this. For each one of these distributions, you can see the date that it was given to us and the date that it expires, meaning when we have to spend it, and the amounts. So essentially, it's come to us in 3 buckets, if you will. The first round of CARES funds over here to my right, your left. This has gone to support nutrition employees' salaries and benefits through September. So when the shutdown first came, we continued to operate the meals program, as you know. So we supported the salaries and benefits of those workers who were doing that through September. We purchased MiFis and data plans to go along with those MiFis. Google Voice in order to accommodate some special needs accommodations through IEPs with our devices, and some LTE-enabled iPads, some other technology purchases, license support for those technologies. And then with maintenance, we purchased a great deal of personal protective equipment, laundry list of that, gloves, masks, all kinds of things, floor stickers, signs, a lot of the signage that you see around the schools. That's essentially what we did with that first bucket, or how we have encumbered that. Then the set-aside funds that you see in the middle here, we, again, support our nutrition staff, salaries, payroll, October and November with those funds. Supplies and containers that go along with the meals that we're distributing every day. Those supplies, obviously, we needed to, the containers and the bags and the the plastic containers. Chromebooks, I think, used Vision grants. So part of this disbursement involved grant funds through to support technology. So we purchased Chromebooks, as well as the portable hand washing stations that we're renting that you see in all the schools. There's one right out here in the outside of the auditorium. So we have those in every school. And then finally, what we're calling round 3, this is actually CRF, the Corona Relief Fund, is supporting a long-term substitute in each school for just this year. So that's a finite appointment for the rest of this year. Increased support through our vendor that does technology support along with our technology staff, Atronica. So we've increased that support because we have such an increase of devices to help us support those. Purchased more of the LTE-enabled Chromebooks to make sure that we're one-on-one with our students with those. We have supplied microphones, special microphones that each teacher can use so that they can be live in the classroom and walk around the classroom and still be heard by the students that are zooming in on their laptop. They don't have to just be fixed in front of the laptop to pick up their voice. They have these microphones that they can use. We purchased a generator because of our network capabilities, the increased, so that we could try to avoid any outages that might happen, since everybody is so tied to that technology right now. Water filling stations that we're going to upgrade in each of our schools where you have water fountains. We're going to install the fillable water stations, I think later this month. We're hoping for that. And then to support the bipolar ionization that we just talked about at this school, we're picking up, that's about $45,000 for Sinclair Walker. And then the county funds are going to support that in the other 2 schools. So I just wanted you to have an update of how that money has been either used or will be used and what it looks like and how it's been dispersed. Any questions that you might have. We have obviously spreadsheets that detail every cent. I'm generalizing when I say PPE, but we can show you obviously in granular detail exactly what and how much it cost.
It has been expensive, hasn't it?
It has indeed. And the help has been much appreciated.
Yes.
From the state and the county. We certainly appreciate the county's support.
Absolutely.
Anything you'd want to add to that, Mrs. Murray? Okay.
Okay. The floor is open for public comment. Hearing none, the floor is closed. Dr. Gretz, do you have anything else to add?
I don't. We're excited about moving forward, and obviously we've got a lot happening every day, but the staff continues to be exceptional and their commitment is exceptional. And I work with a tremendous leadership team, and it's a pleasure to do this work with them every day.
Is there any old business to come before the board? Any new business?
We do have a piece of new business and there is you'll see your amended agenda includes it. And there's a piece of information that was at your place to support this item. So essentially, the modifications that we're doing to our HVAC systems in all 3 schools with the bipolar ionization, because it's using funds that have to be expended by the end of December, we needed to act quickly to both secure the funding for this, but also to procure it. And so we have worked with our school board attorney. And again, this has been approved by the county, and we did inform them of this. So to do an emergency procurement in order to support doing the project in the time allotted to do it, as well as to respect the maintenance contract that we have with Honeywell. And so you'll see I'm not going to read this to you, but the rationale behind it is essentially the technology is going to be modifying existing units for which Honeywell is responsible And so they certainly would prefer to be the ones to make any modifications to those units, but they also are prepared to do it in the time allotted. And so we were able to be approved to do this under emergency procurement. So we're asking the board to approve awarding this procurement to Honeywell accordingly so that we can begin the work.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the HVAC emergency procurement? Is there a second?
Second?
Any questions concerning this? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
You.
Wonderful that we can get that done.
And that includes the county funds too, right?
Yes. This is procuring the work.
Mhm.
So it'd be paid for by both the school funds and the county funds.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel that we need to certainly thank the county for their
Mhm.
tremendous support here through the current procurement of the ionization and also the moving forward with the HVAC system at the elementary school. Certainly desperately needed, been there, and it's wonderful that hopefully this will be finished by next summer.
Mhm.
Really appreciate their support there.
Absolutely.
If there is nothing else to come before the board at this time, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Very good. Hey, one thing you forgot to compliment on,
What?
that he plays the guitar.